We'll now have a look at the tone curve, and again I've selected an image that probably best suits the sort of treatment I wish to apply. So I'm going to click on the tone curve panel, and here we have what's called the parametric layout here. We call it point curve linear, or we can select that setting there, which is the actual point curve, which allows us to actually click in the curve to select it. I'll just reset that. The normal curve, I'll just go out of that. That allows you to drag these sliders, and as you can see, as I drag a slider, you can see the area that it's affecting. You can also go inside the tool itself, or the graphic itself, and as I drag it up and down, you can see the slider is moving depending on the area of the graph that I've selected. And you see that the grey area shows you the extent of the control that you're sliding. You can also drag these sliders to change the area that the sliders are altering. For this image here, looking at the histogram, you can see there's no information in the full left hand side. I've basically exposed for the highlights, which is how you're supposed to do things. This was in a hurricane, basically looking through some horrible atmosphere, and so it's quite a muted type of image because of the atmosphere it's about a mile away from where I took the picture, and so the grot in the air has flattened the contrast within the image. So this is quite a good example of where the tone curve can be used, because it'd be very difficult to sort out this contrast just using the basic panel. I'll just reset it again, and I'm going to make sure I'm using the point curve here. So what we can do here, and you can see the histogram here is re-represented in the graph we have here in the tone curve panel. Okay. And so from here to there appears to be no image information. So what we can do is we can actually click on the tone curve and drag that along the bottom until it just touches the start of the tonal information, and immediately you can see that it's expanded the tonal range of the image. Now, none of these panels should be used in isolation, and for this sort of image we have quite a good tool within the effects panel called dehaze, and this is designed to try and cut through some of the haze within an image. And if I drag that to the left, you can see it doesn't do much good, but drag it to the right and it can really boost contrast and detail within a flat image. So I'm going to leave that probably about there, and then go back to our tone curve. I'm just going to get out of that particular the point curve, and we're back into this where we can adjust the sliders. We can also click on the tone curve by dragging in the photo with this tool here. So if we go to there, we can go into the image and say drag down. I'll darken that particular density of image, or maybe we want to drag down in the brighter areas to bring more detail into the bright areas, and drag that up to make it a little bit less dense in the dark areas. So we can, and as I'm doing that, you can see that the curve is changing. The trouble is, at the moment, you can see these little nodes at the bottom. These represent where the shadow there, is affecting the image. Now, that slider isn't doing anything because it's underneath an area in the tone curve where there is no information. So what we can do is we can drag these nodes to the right, so that now when I drag the shadow slider, it actually has an effect because it's underneath an area with tonal information. Okay, a little bit more like that. So the highlights I've dragged to the left a little bit, just so that if we drag it to the right, we're going to blow out some of the detail in the highlights. So it's almost like a negative curve we're applying here. Maybe just down to something like that. And we can create a shaped curve that tries to control the contrast within the image. We can of course go back to the basic panel and use the controls in there again. So we've got the whites slider. The trouble is, because we've gone and clipped within the tone curve, it might be very difficult to get rid of some of the highlight clipping here. Okay, so you may need to go back to the tone curve, but we can use the clarity slider. We can use the saturation, maybe just get rid of a little bit of that blue cast by dragging the saturation to the left. Go back to our tone curve. Okay, so the tone curve I use for right at the moment you can see we've got quite a lot of dense. It starts within quite heavily within the tonal information there, so I need to drag that over there, otherwise we're just blocking out this area here. Okay. So you need to tweak and retweak these areas like this until you get it just about right, and we can go back to that curve there, and these just expand one on top of the other. Okay, if you don't want a node, you can just select it and delete it. So I'll just drag that back to there. So here we have our variable tone curve. So that is how you can use the tone curve to good effect. I wouldn't normally use the tone curve on most images, but certainly for an image like this, it's quite useful. And if we go to the before and after, we can see the before and after. Select again, before and after. So it has made quite a radical difference, and this is just during a demo, so I'd have done this with a little bit more care and precision if I was doing it for a competition or something. Back to the normal loop view, and say again, you could then just go on to change in the basic panel or whatever other panels you wish to continue working on the image in.